Wow, man. I mean, you've asked me here to sort of open up about my one of my life's biggest projects, and so I
Yes,
will do
please.
my very best to keep this succinct. I have struggled with stress for my entire life. I never had a good relationship with stress. I was always an overachiever. I always worked very hard because, again, I had to overcompensate for the inner procrastinator. And so my manifestation of work stood in direct opposition, almost extreme to that imposter, so that
Mm,
an imposter as well, but to that procrastinator. So if I was by default very lazy, very reluctant to work, when I was productive, I worked so hard and I really, really applied myself. And at some point, I even got hypnotized by the hustle culture that was prevalent in the
mm,
early 2000s, early 2010s. And so I burned out in high school, I burned out in post secondary, I burned out in my internship, my early career, but it really caught up to me when I was a young leader working at Ryerson University. And I experienced the last, hopefully, fingers crossed, the last episode of burnout. And
mm,
burnout, as we now know, defined by the World Health Organization, is the result of chronic workplace stress that has been unsuccessfully managed. And at the time of writing, the World Health Organization um, didn't give it the definition that they gave in 2019. I published the book in 2017. I started working on it in 2014. And at the time, the conversations around burnout were dramatically lower in volume and fewer in terms of just total conversations about burnout. So when in 2019, the World Health Organization upgraded the definition and then paired that with their declaration that stress is the health epidemic of the 21st century, I got chills in my body because I was like, wow, man, I've been trying to say this for years, and I've been able to reach my immediate friends, my immediate family, my coworkers, and all of the people who have been so generous with their time, energy, and attention by purchasing the book, by reading it, by trading it. There's people in the world, maybe there's thousands, maybe there's 10,000s, I don't know, who who have been able to, before the World Health Organization reclassified burnout, see this for the problem that it is. This was such a big problem that I honestly, I didn't want to write this book. I didn't even want to do the talk. When you look at my trajectory, when you look at my LinkedIn, you clearly see that this was a digital marketer, a marketing and communications professional who was working in education. So in some ways, this whole tangent of burnout is just that. It's
mm,
a tangent. It was something that was unplanned, that happened very organically, because I burned out and I was told by doctors that I could no longer subject myself to the levels of stress that I had previously endured. Otherwise, it might be fatal the next time around. So here I was, Mr. Productive, having to confront the reality that for the foreseeable future, at least, I could no longer be as productive. So I had to really think about what is it that I needed to do to prevent myself from relapsing, but also how could I actually get more done or the same amount of work done
mhm.
with my newfound constraints. And what I discovered, my man, is that there were actually diminishing returns, that I thought I was being productive and I had a lot of outputs, but very few outcomes.
Uh-huh.
And
I love that.
you have to prioritize calm over crazy. Forgive me for using that word. Calm over crazy, because we always use that word. We throw it around all the time. It's crazy at work. It's crazy at school. How are things? Oh, Omer, it's crazy. Hamza, how are things? Oh man, it's crazy. Don't ask. But
Yeah.
being busy, being that frantic, has diminishing returns, and I think is inversely proportional to the level of success that, for example, Bill Gates has.
Yeah.
You think Bill Gates feels crazy busy? No, quite the opposite. Like you said, he takes that 10-day retreat
Yeah.
and he's calm and he's collected and he's allowing that mental elasticity to sort of revert back to a really calm, grounded, present state. He reads books and then is able to apply himself to
Mm,
high cognitive, creative tasks and projects that dramatically move work forward, versus the rest of us who are kind of just like ducks who appear placid and calm on the surface, but are frantically paddling our feet below the water. So that's why I wrote the book. I wrote this book as a recovery exercise for me, as a way to process what had happened, but also as a warning, also as a solution to, honestly, not just the people in my life that I care about, but I knew that someday I would have to read this book again. So I wanted to capture in that moment the things that I knew were true that could allow somebody to reduce the
yeah.
frequency and not frequency and frequency too, but reduce the likelihood of stressful events in their life, but also diminish and reduce the impact of stressful
Mm.
events on their life, which I think are the two dual components of the model that I encapsulated in the book, The Dragon Method. So there's that, man.